Yeah, the last video that I did for AQA Sociology was the overview of the crime and deviance content, and on the same paper, which is paper 3, which is Friday afternoon, um, basically I went through all the basic content, the names that you need to know, stuff like that. Brief look at different kinds of essays that they could throw at you. And then I posted it on TikTok, and then I did an overview on YouTube. And then I've had people who want the theory and methods half of the paper. So here I am, absolute man of the people. Here I go, you know. So yeah, if you've come back from the crime and deviance video, I'm well glad that my absolutely gorgeous articulation and even more beautiful northern accent is doing you a solid here. Yeah, I'll just start because I'm starting to waffle. Alright, so the first part that I'm going to get into is the methods. There was a method question on paper 1, which makes me doubt how much this will be relevant for paper 3, but it's worth looking over anyway, because I don't know what's coming up on this exam. I ain't got a clue. So revise everything, know everything, and then they can't throw you off. You know what I'm saying? So the first half of these are the quantitative research methods. These are the ones that are favoured by positivists because they're objective and numerical, which means data can be cross-examined to generate cause and effect relationships, and generalisations can be made. Quantitative research methods include laboratory experiments, field experiments, questionnaires, structured interviews, and official statistics. Vouch. Right, so your lab experiments. These are favoured by positivists. Lab experiments test a hypothesis in a controlled environment where their research changes the independent variable and measures the effects on the dependent variable. I can't speak. So, 2 examples of these that have come to my head. Milgram's obedience study with, he was the guy that basically told people that they were given electric shocks to a learner when they got an answer wrong. And that showed how individuals conform to authority because they were willing to just get electric shocked. That kind of thing, you know what I mean? If an authority figure says that, yeah, this is a really good idea and it's going to help people, then we go, okay. Which could be useful in a crime and deviance like methods and context question if they went like, what's the use of what's a good reason for using quantitative research methods in research about criminality or authority or something like that. And then the other obvious one is the Bobo doll, which is Bandura. If you don't know that one, look it up because I've been through that one enough times. We've got field experiments on the other hand. Obviously the advantages and disadvantages there, but a lot of them are really repetitive, so you can read them, and I've put them there, you know what I mean? You can read them. Field experiments, they take place in the real social world, whereby sociologists either create a situation or adapt a real life situation to their research purpose. Those involved are usually unaware of this research taking place. So an example of that one would be Rosenthal and Jacobson, which was Pygmalion in the classroom, which was to investigate self-fulfilling prophecy. That's when they split the class into 3, saying these are going to do shit, these are going to do alright, and then these are going to be absolutely mentally good. And then they all turned out to be that way, even though they're all randomly generated, because teacher attitudes change the way that students are able to perform even. Another one for that could be Elms and Milgram, which was obedience in natural settings. That were another field experiment that they did, which was testing how people obey or dodge authority figures. Again, could be useful in a methods and context kind of question. This is the second part of the quantitative research methods because I couldn't fit it on one slide. So the first one we've got is questionnaires. Written or self-completed questionnaires are a form of social survey and can be distributed in a range of ways, notably via post, email, or handed out in person. Questionnaires are typically a list of preset questions that are closed-ended questions with pre-coded answers. All your advantages and disadvantages are there as per usual. Fantastic example of this one is the census. If you're old enough, or your parents will have filled it out, it's basically just a big questionnaire that they send to everyone, and they go, how many people are living at your house? Are you working? What benefits do you claim? How many kids do you have? Stuff like that, you know what I mean? Like, how many crimes have been committed against you in the past, I don't know, a certain amount of time. But they sent out over, I can't remember how many years it is between sending them out, but it's a few anyway. Then you've got structured interviews. These are the positive favoured Right, they're interviews that involve face-to-face or over-the-phone delivery of a questionnaire, and in turn they use a list of preset questions designed by the researcher and asked all the interviewees the same way. So your advantages and disadvantages there as per usual. 2 examples. British Social Attitudes Survey. That's like British people's view on marriage, stuff like that. Having kids, work. Also, Wilmot and Young did some structured interviews when they were researching the symmetrical family, which could also be mentioned. If you can hear my dog tapping on the door, right, she's really trying to dig up my mum's garden at the minute. So I can't let her out, but she's very, very persistent in trying to break away through the bottom of the door. So ignore it if you can hear it. I don't know if you can, I'm wearing headphones. And finally, we've got, for quantitative research methods, we've got official statistics, which are quantitative data collected by government bodies. This method is favoured by positivists because data is quick, cheap, and easy to access, and it covers a wide range of social issues. She's really going for this door, you know. Some examples of these are crime statistics, unemployment figures, census data, data on births, deaths, marriages, stuff like that. There's statistics for everything. So yeah, that's your quantitative research methods. Then we've got qualitative research methods. Again, this is split into 2 because there was too much to fit onto one slide without it being absolutely minuscule. So these methods are favoured by interpretativists because they provide deep, subjective and meaningful insights on social behaviour. Qualitative research methods include unstructured interviews, participant observation and documents. So starting with historical documents, advantages, they allow comparisons over time, for example birth, death and marriage rates. They're useful when assessing the outcomes of various social policies, and that's why they're good, I guess. So examples of these are Thomas and Zanecki's research on the Polish peasants and how they were writing letters to each other and stuff. Another example of this, if you're really, really fighting for your life, trying to think of somewhere, is Anne Frank's diary, but it is a stretch and it is common knowledge, so it's not proving that you've learned anything from the course, you know what I mean? So, preference Thomas and Zanecki's whole research on the letters from the Polish people rather than Anne Frank's diary. But if you need something, she's always there, you know what I mean? Then we've got unstructured interviews. Unstructured interviews mainly ask open-ended questions that produce qualitative data and rich in meaning. There is a strong relationship built between the interviewer and the interviewee, which means that the data is more likely to be valid. Examples of these is Rappaport and Rappaport's study on domestic violence in the centre that was for domestic violence survivors, women. Or what's another one that you could use? I guess Paul Willis, because they were unstructured group interviews between all working class lads and why they strayed away from education. But Rappaport one's probably more relevant to crime and deviance because obviously domestic violence is a crime. Then you got personal documents. I'm realising now that there's, well, I don't know. I guess you could use Thomas and Zanecki's letters in the personal documents rather than the historical documents, but they are historical documents because it's. I'm not sure, right? I'm not a teacher. I don't have a clue. I'm just trying to help. I'm trying to help people out. All right. I've got Thomas and Zanecki, right, for personal documents. You know what I'm saying? All right. Moving on to the debates. Right. If I had to guess, I would assume that one of these is going to come up because they didn't last time. That's my only justification for my guess. I get it, but have a look. You know what I mean? Just get it learned. You know what I'm saying? So, so the first debate that we've got is sociology a science? So the little intro that I wrote here is positivists argue that sociology can be a science by modelling itself on natural sciences using qualitative methods and induction or verificationism to establish observable patterns in behaviour and develop causal laws. On the other hand, interpretivists argue that sociology can't be scientific because humans are governed by internal meanings. Therefore, the task of sociology is to use the Verstehen to uncover such meanings. Alternatively, Kuhn sits on the fence about the debate and beliefs about sociology because they'll never pass the stage of pre-science because there is never one dominant perspective and it may have an unifying theory. Jesus Christ, that was a mouthful. Alright, so on the side that sociology is a science, right? Comte, right, he says that science is there to explain how things relate to each other using laws. It's possible to discover that the laws that control and shape the behaviour of people in society. Therefore, the main task of sociology is to discover general laws of social development through laws of coexistence and the laws of succession. So that's basically him saying we do it the same way that scientists do, and we've got the same processes and stuff. So why shouldn't it be considered a science? Scenario 3 for that is Durkheim. He criticised Comte in arguing that he failed to study sociology as a science. Instead, he believed that sociology is a science because we can study social facts as things to observe and measure. Like his suicide study that we all love. We all love it. But Durkheim still believes that sociology is a science. He just criticises Comte because he doesn't like the way that he puts it. So they're both for sociology as a science, just in different ways. Then they got inductive We've then got inductive logic and positivism. Inductive logic is a feature of positivism that makes a general conclusion from a set of specific facts. It uses objects that have been examined and experiments that have been conducted to establish a conclusion about an object that has not been examined. So that's basically doing it like observations on something else to determine the sociology of something else, if that makes any sense whatsoever. Then the next people, sociology is not a science. Popper, for sociology to be a science, it must undergo the process of falsification. In order to do this, the theory must have an inductive method and then be challenged by a deductive method to prove it wrong. However, sociology cannot be science because it cannot undergo falsification due to how many sociological ideas are too abstract to be tested. And also, sociologists really, really love to say, I'm right and you're wrong, right? They say, I'm right, you're wrong, everyone else is wrong, I'm right, so it can't go undergo falsification because it can't be proved wrong, if you know what I mean. Popper's a postmodernist as well. So the postmodernist perspective of this is that sociology can't be a science because everyone thinks they're right. And then Popper goes, and I'm right about that. So, I mean, a bit counterproductive there, but whatever. Then Weber, he says that he uses interpretivism to study sociology from a subjective perspective. This draws on ideas of Verstehen, which means sociology requires a subjective understanding which relates to opinions. However, science is strongly objective and could not be considered a science, nor should it want to be a science. Then sociology is and isn't a science. That's Kuhn. He reckons that scientific theory exists because it has undergone a series of paradigm shifts. An old way of thinking is replaced by a new one, whereby the unified theory and/or perspective that supports scientific claim. In this instance, there are 3 stages. So, pre-science, a period of discovery where there was no central paradigm. Normal science, Scientists use an established paradigm to support their theory, and 3, revolutionary science, which is paradigms challenged. Ignore where I've put the 2 and the 3 there because it's wrong. Anyway, then Kuhn argues sociology will never pass the period of pre-science because sociology does not have a dominant perspective. It's a bunch of different perspectives that work together to make one. You know what I'm saying? So the next essay, Jesus. The next essay that they could chuck at you is, or the next debate that they could chuck at you is, can sociology be value free? Positives believe that society could be improved through objective scientific knowledge, free from values of the researcher, whereas interpretivists, on the other hand, argue that it's impossible for sociology to be value free due to how to research is subjective and influenced by values in all aspects. For instance, sociologists' own values influence the methods that they may use. Alternatively, Weber fits between the two and argues sociology cannot be free from values in the research process, but can be free from values when collecting data. So that puts him more on like the value, it can be value free kind of thing. So, to start off, interpretivists say that sociology can't be value free. Sociology cannot be studied free of values because it's subjective, and the sociologist's views are influenced by the choice of research topic, choice of method, and the funding body. Merdel and Goldner say that we all have dominant assumptions, which basically means that sociology can't be value free because we all hold these domain assumptions, which are views that we all have about the world. Therefore, it's impossible for us to detach ourselves from what we know about the world. So, how you know the world is up to perception. Therefore, sociology can't be value free because you're going to put your perception into what you look at, how you look at it, why you look at it, stuff like that. And then another point towards sociology can't be value free is funding and power. So sociologists get paid to do the research because capitalism and that, you know. So because they have to be paid, the organisation probably has more control over the values, and obviously they want the values to reflect their own beliefs. So here I've wrote most of the points referring to funding maintain that they make sociology and natural sciences unable to be value free, since the organisation that is funding the research will have vested interests which are shaped by society. And then we've got a sociologist, Gom, who I accidentally haven't made bold, so I'm going to highlight him there. Sociology is a social action carried out by people in the real world, and the real world is characterised by conflicts of interest between social groups, some from whom are more powerful than others, like feminism and the patriarchy. So sociologists should only identify their values, but opening to taking sides, because it's undesirable to be value neutral, and at the end of the day, most sociologists just kind of want to get the bag. I mean, it's a job, isn't it? So some people are completely against the idea that it should be value free. Then, on the other hand, we've got positivist sociology, which they say that it can be value free. I'm going to start down at the bottom with Durkheim. So he's an early functionalist, and he aimed to see sociology be seen as science, like the last essay. So value, freedom, and objectivity was essential in relating it to other sciences. And he wants it to be value free because that makes it look more sciencey, I guess. Which then you can relate back to his suicide study, which he did based off statistics from different things. He did no like qualitative research; it was all quantitative. So he was just completely removed from it. And then he just chucked a couple of his opinions. I think that whole study is bullshit, but it's worth it to mention because it'll get you marks. Then Weber, he kind of thinks that essentially what he thinks is that it can't be value free in the way that you choose what you research, so it's got to be something that's vaguely important to you or something that you find interesting, because no one's forcing you to do it, you know what I mean? But the actual research process can be value free. So what I've wrote here is sociology can be value free once the research process has been chosen, but the values need to be explicitly stated. So values as a guide to research, we can only select areas of study in terms of their value and reference to us, so it can't be value free. Then data collection and hypothesis testing. Sociologists must be objective as possible when actually collecting the facts. Like not asking leading questions, the hypothesis must succeed or fall solely on whether it fits the observed facts. Then we've also got values in the interpretation of data. Facts need to be set in a theoretical framework to understand their significance. This is influenced by the sociologist's values, which must be stated explicitly. And then values and the sociologist as a citizen. Sociologists are citizens, they cannot dodge the moral issues their work raises or the issues that is put into hiding behind value freedom. So that's essentially that. It's an alright essay to be given. So you do your intro, then I'd probably, whatever the question is, start your essay on where the items led you, kind of. But I'd probably do 2 or 3 paragraphs on it can't be value free, because you can talk about interpretivists, then Myrtle and Goldner, and then funding and power with Gone. Then do sociology can be free, talk about positivists and how they think that sociology can be studied free of values because it's objective. Probably mention Durkheim in there in that paragraph, and then use Weber as your final point, which is like the middle ground. But do put him with the positive side because he does reckon it can be value free, and then you just do your outro. So that's that essay. Okay, so this is the end of the first half of theory and methods. In the next one, I'll finish talking about general theoretical perspectives, which should be quite simple because that'll be what you did in your first year. And then perspectives view on social policy, and then that is pretty much everything in the theories and methods content. So yeah, again, I hope it were helpful. I hope you enjoyed my absolutely brilliant articulation, my beautiful way of my beautiful way of words, and yeah, me getting frustrated at my dog knocking on the door. But yeah, I'll post the other one as soon as it's done. It'll be done by Friday, definitely. It'll be done before Friday, so you've got time to actually revise it. But yeah, if you haven't seen the Crime and Deviance one, look at it. It's useful, I think. I were also thinking about doing another version of the Crime and Deviance one, but more in depth, because I had people telling me that it was brief, and that was my aim for that one. I wanted it to be brief, because realistically, I don't want to rewrite the entire fucking textbook onto a PowerPoint. But if you want, if someone wants more detail, I might do another one, depending on whether or not I've got enough time. But like I said in last one, this actually helps me because saying it out loud kind of lodges it in my head. So yeah, that's that. Try.